Hi everyone, we're here today for the next episode of Student Athlete Success with former collegiate and professional baseball player Charlie McConnell. It's great seeing you again, mate. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me on.
No worries, it's great to have you and actually be able to chat to you, especially during this time. It's not as if we can go out and grab a pint anywhere.
I know. Get us to Connors, except they're closed now, which is
Yeah, they've replaced it already.
Did they actually?
Yeah, they replaced it with some Mexican restaurant there. Like,
I mean, if it's good, that works. But
yeah, I know, but
Connors
still,
gone.
it won't be the same.
Yeah.
So you obviously grew up in Reading, Mass. Tell us about life there. Obviously living outside a big sports place like Boston.
I mean, growing up in Reading was huge. Obviously, Reading, Northeast in general, huge hockey town. So I grew up playing hockey more than baseball. I actually wanted to play hockey in college, but clearly we saw how that worked out. But I got to play it all throughout high school, and that was sort of my childhood growing up was living in ice rinks. And then it wasn't until I was about probably 15 or so where I realized I was actually better at baseball. And I was thinking to myself, I should probably put all my eggs in this basket. So I did that, focus on baseball a lot more, and obviously it worked out for me.
Yeah, so you come from an athletic background. Your dad being a former baseball player himself, and then coach at Suffolk, where he's now transitioned to athletic director. Do you think he was the one that pushed you along to become a baseball player instead of a hockey
Oh,
player?
100%. I don't think without him, I'd be playing baseball. Yeah, but I mean, it was awesome growing up as a kid because I would get to go to all the games at Suffolk and sort of hang out in the dugout. Probably have a picture somewhere of me as the bat boy. Um, the helmet was bigger than my body, but I mean, just growing up around it, you learn to love the game, and I think that sort of stayed with me all throughout my life. And obviously, I still have it now. But I mean, I don't want to say I'm blessed because of it. It sort of just led me down a great path that I'll forever
Yeah.
be thankful for.
So when do you think you first fell in love with the game then? Do you think it was the moments just seeing everyone at Suffolk?
That had to be it. I would say the one memory that sticks out is probably 2000. So I was probably four or five. Tough to do math, but they were down in Cape Cod for like the NCAA tournament, and just like the energy and the atmosphere was something I'd never experienced, obviously, because I'm 4 years old.
Yeah.
And for some reason, I just remember that. And I remember them hitting a big home run, like in the semifinals to go to the championship. And I thought it was the coolest thing ever. And then obviously, you got the Red Sox winning in '04. I watched that game when they won. You realize how passionate people are about the sport. And I mean, once you realize how much goes into it and you get the success as a team, it means the world to you.
Yeah, and do you think having your dad as a former baseball player himself and then coach at that point, do you think he pushed you along there to be the best athlete you could be?
Oh, absolutely. So when I was like 14, 15, he actually coached our travel team. And so I was playing with kids a little older than me. They were 16, I was 14, and I was struggling. He was like, just keep going, just keep going. And obviously, it helps and hurts to have your dad chirping in your ear at all times.
Yeah.
Had some good car ride home, some bad car ride home.
Yeah, the ones where you
I
just stay silent, you're like, oh, if I
yeah,
open my mouth here.
had a few bad ones where we stayed silent the whole time, but I mean, he sort of just held me accountable and obviously pushed me to be the best I could be. And I mean, it definitely helped me in baseball, and then obviously in terms of life as well, just building character as a
Yeah.
person.
Yeah, because I was I was in the same boat. Like my dad played professionally, and then he was my coach growing up through. And but he would always tell you straight. So you knew when you had a bad game because he would tell you, but you also knew when you had a good game. You're like, oh yeah, he's actually being honest here.
Yeah, there's no way to escape
Yeah.
it. I mean, I would try and go to my mom; she would still tell me I sucked.
So you obviously mentioned it there. You played at Belmont Hill as a dual sport athlete in baseball and hockey, where you won the ISL baseball championship twice and the hockey championship once. How was your time at that school there?
I mean, that really shaped who I am today. All boys school, obviously not attractive to
That
a lot
must
of
have been
people.
fun, you know.
Yeah, but I mean, it's day school, not boarding, thankfully. Jacket and tie every day, dress pants. If you were lucky, you'd have what they'd call a dress down day where you could wear a collared shirt, but that was rare. It'd have to be like 90 degrees out. We actually, I'm going to get off topic. We had like a little memorial ceremony one year, and it was 90 out. Everyone was in their jacket and tie. There was like 6 kids that passed out, and we were all standing in a line. You just see them drop like flies. You're like,
Yeah.
what is going on? It was terrifying. But yeah, I mean, I started Belmont Hill in 8th grade, and just I loved it because, I mean, I'm still immature now, but back then I was even more immature, and it helped me grow up and sort of learn to do things on my own. And I mean, I'll forever be thankful for being able to go there. It's just like an experience I'll never forget.
Yeah, it's not immature, Charlie. It's just for kids at heart. That's what it is.
Yeah.
5-year-olds and 20-something-year-olds' bodies. That's all it is.
Yeah, exactly.
So, what role do you think like Belmont Hill obviously played in your preparation for college? Like being able to compete at 2 sports as well, like that must have been handy.
Yeah, so hockey, I mean, you're competing against, I mean, some of the top competition in New England. So some of the guys you see on Northeastern, I played against them in high school, like Lincoln Griffin, and Barry, who left Northeastern. But a few of those guys, you got to play against them, and you just realize how high the competition is, and you realize the work that those guys put in to obviously play Division I hockey. And then same thing on the baseball side, like you're playing guys that are going to get drafted out of high school, and obviously, which is rare for baseball in the Northeast, but I mean, I would consider it probably the top baseball in New England. I mean, there's other private schools that do it as well, but
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we definitely got a chance to play against some of the better players, which ultimately makes you a better player because you see what you're up against.
Yeah. So you ended up at Northeastern. What other schools were you looking at?
So I narrowed it down to BC and Northeastern. Obviously 2 Boston schools. A lot of people, when I tell them that, they're like, you're crazy, why don't you go to BC? But I was kind of worried BC would be more the same of a high school, sort of the preppy atmosphere. And
Yeah.
I mean, not that I didn't like it. I didn't want 4 more years of it. And I mean,
4 more years of
Northeastern,
that shirt and tie and blazer.
yeah, exactly. formal cocktail dinners. Yeah, but I mean, just I had my visit at Northeastern, sat with Coach Glavin up in the field house there at Parsons. I'm sure all of us have been there. You with soccer, me with baseball, and just I loved it. Loved everything he had to say, and I think I verbally committed probably a week or 2 later.
So would you say that Coach Glavin was the main reason for going to Northeastern then?
Yeah, absolutely. Just everything he was saying and what he wanted to build. Obviously, successful team, being from the Northeast, and obviously growing up in the Northeast. I mean, you don't really get as much credit as you deserve on the baseball front because it's not thought of as a baseball region. So,
Yeah.
I mean, the chance to sort of stay close to home, but also far enough from home at the same time was also attractive. And I mean, I loved it. And right away, I was just bought in completely from day one.
Yeah, what type of things did they have to say to you to sell you on the place? Like, I know Glav talks a good game, so I know that.
Yeah, he's very good at recruiting. He puts on this face, best friend, like all coaches do, until you get there and you're like, oh my God, what's going on? But no, like just the chance to compete. Obviously, they're not going to guarantee you like a starting spot or anything, but I mean, he was straightforward with me, told me how it would be, said, you're going to have to work to get what you want. And he was like, in his eyes, he thought I could get to the next level, which to me meant a lot because that was obviously my goal at that point, and I wanted to get there. And for him to say that and that he would help me to basically get me there and do everything that he could in his power, it meant a lot to me. And I mean, what more do you want as a 16-year-old kid for someone to tell you that?
Yeah, they've got your back, like no matter what. Like it's important,
Yeah.
especially at college level, because a lot comes up along that path.
I mean, college, they're selling you. They're almost like salesmen. And then for him to just be transparent and just tell me straight up how it is, it meant a lot to me. And obviously it means a lot to your family as well when you're there, that they're not spewing some lies at you to make you feel good about yourself. He told me how it was, and I mean, it was like a man-to-man conversation, not a man to a boy.
Yeah, I know. Like that's the thing. Like a lot of coaches, they'll just talk at you instead of asking
Yeah.
you, like, what do you want? They'll just be like, oh,
Yeah.
this is what we'll give you, blah 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 blah. You're like, you're not taking it in. You're just like, oh, okay.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It's not what you want. I mean, obviously, some kids want to hear that though. They want to be told like, "Hey, you're gonna get this, this, and this," and that's what's appealing to them. And but I just knew it's not what I wanted. And I mean, obviously, you can't get to your goals without hard work. And I mean, for him to just lay that out, just put everything into perspective.
Yeah. So obviously, it kind of worked out pretty well. Like you were successful with your time there, and you reached the CA championship final in your junior year in 2018, where unfortunately narrowly lost to UNCW. How was that experience and that journey? Obviously, it's a long season as well, like in spring and summer.
That was probably, I mean, not to talk bad about the other 2 seasons. That was by far my favorite because we got to go to a regional and everything. But just all around from a team basis, every guy on that team is just you enjoyed going to practice. It was one of those teams where you love showing up every day, whether it was practice, lift, heck, maybe even study hall sometimes when you see everyone in there. Obviously, sometimes you got work done, sometimes you didn't, but you just love being around the guys because it's all your friends, end of the day. And it's more than just baseball and you're building relationships for life. But I mean, to play with those guys every day, it's just everyone lifts each other up. It's just a great team chemistry all around. I mean, which is what you want in the end.
Yeah, so you played with some characters in that team, like guys from all over. Who were the guys that impressed you the most and stood out, like when you first
Uh,
arrived?
yeah, obviously, Jake Farrell, kind of
How
lanky.
much did they pay you to say that?
He didn't pay me to say that. Obviously, he's kind of a goof, but I mean, just he would show up and just perform, and you'd watch it, and you'd just be awestruck, and you'd be like, "I wish I could do that." And just some of the stuff he could do was amazing. Just a freak athlete. I mean, then you have Scott Holzwasser. Uh, you walk by and you wouldn't think much, and then he's hitting the ball 400 feet to left center for a home run.
Yeah.
I mean, just everyone on that. Ty Brown, pitching, Brian Christian pitching, Kyle Murphy. I mean, every guy on that team contributed. And it's just like you watch them all go in, day out. You might have a bad day, and then there you look back, Cam Walsh is there to pick you up. It was awesome.
Yeah, and that's like usually a good atmosphere about the place, as you said. Like, and everyone kind of looked out for each other as well, which was nice. Like, that's what a team should be all about.
Yes. Yeah, it makes a difference in the end. I mean, you're not going to have fun. And I mean, end of the day, that's the most important thing is that you're having fun and enjoying it. And I mean, I've definitely been on some teams where guys have been miserable, especially in pro ball. You see it more because it's definitely more individual mindset there because everyone's
Yeah.
trying to get to the top level. But just that team, no one cared about individual or anything. Everyone just wanted to win, which made it so much fun.
Yeah, so obviously you shared the locker room with some good guys, always up for a laugh. Like, what kind of things was it you got up to, like, that kept the atmosphere going?
I don't know there's some things in there that we probably can't talk about, but
I just throw them there.
I got to think about this one. I mean, there's just obviously you're in practice and you're going through drills and stuff, and I mean it's tedious drills that you have to do, but you don't want to do them. And everyone's just making light of the situation, yelling, joking around. That would happen every single day. I mean, obviously we had walk-up songs actually that year for the first time ever. We convinced Coach Glavin to do it, which was a big milestone for him. He was always against them. But
that use of technology, you know?
Yeah, exactly. I'll tell a quick story about that. We had him. It was our first home series against Elon. Mine was Firestone by Kygo to start out the year. I think I got a hit, got back, we scored, whatever. And he goes, that walk-up was effing terrible. And I was like, thanks, coach. Literally 2 weeks later, I changed it because everyone was making fun of me and I got all self-conscious about it. But, like, that's how it was. You could joke around with everyone and just tell them how it was. And
Yeah.
no one would care. They wouldn't take it to heart because at the end of the day, it's all your boys.
Yeah, and it's like a kind of family environment, and like
Yes.
Glav was like your dad.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure a lot of guys would definitely glad they're dead. uh, yeah.
So
Definitely a big
obviously living in Boston as well, like some good nights out there. Also, we were out a few times together. Are there any like what you remember as them being like your most memorable?
most memorable nights out. I know we've had some good ones too,
Yeah,
especially together.
especially some wild ones.
Yeah, some dangerous ones in there too. I mean, pretty much every weekend we got into stuff that I'm trying to think of one that sticks out the most. I mean, we had some good 21st birthdays were always good ones.
Yeah.
Um, I know at mine we went to the Wild Rover and Jake and Mike Fitzgerald proceeded to dump Bud Lights all over me, so that was fun. Uh, but I was
It
21
makes
in
a change from Jake dumping it over himself. So like,
yes, exactly. Definitely makes it better that it was not on himself that night. But yeah, I mean, any night you get to go out with the boys is just a good time. And obviously, athletes in general, we all pretty much stuck together when we would go out, and
yeah,
we'd always have a good time no matter where we were. And I mean, I think it didn't matter where we went; we'd always have fun.
yeah. Well, I mean, like all those years that punters were open, we somehow managed to make some good times in there, and God knows how, because that place is a
Yeah,
shambles.
yeah, the worst was when you'd walk in there and hadn't had a drink yet, and you'd actually smell the place. You're like, "Oh
Yeah.
my god, how do I sit in here for 4 hours a night?"
You'd look around and be like, "Whoa, what's actually in here?"
Yeah, you start noticing things that you didn't see.
You're like, quickly give me a few pictures here just to keep me going.
Yeah, exactly.
So overall, like, what would you say your honest experience was of your time at Northeastern?
Overall, I mean, along with Belmont Hill, it kind of shaped who I am. Again, sort of that whole maturity process, growing up, making friends for life. The big thing is you're meeting people from a bunch of different backgrounds. So obviously, Northeastern has a bunch of students internationally, and you kind of get to sort of see everyone else's life and see the world in a different perspective, and that sort of it can shape things for you, and it helps you really. I mean, I don't want to be cliche, but walk a mile in someone else's shoes. I mean, you get to see what their life has been like up until this point, and you get to learn about them. And I mean, I'm really thankful for that because I mean, how would I know what life is like in Hong Kong or I don't know in the UAE without having these group projects with
Yeah,
my fellow classmates and sort of getting to learn about them while also trying to accomplish a project on time, which was always interesting when we were trying to hit deadlines.
especially when you're traveling spring as well. Like that's
Yeah.
like no one understands the time demands of a student athlete until you're actually one.
Yes. You try and like explain it to the people. You're like, oh, I could do that and get the same grades. But once you're actually in it, you kind of realize how little time you have. And I mean, obviously, it sucks in the moment, but you really learn time management, being organizational. I mean, I still have to work on those definitely, but I hope I got a little better throughout my college career and all that.
Hey, baby steps. That's all that matters anyway.
Exactly.
So you left Northeastern after that CA championship defeat in 2018, and you were taken in the MLB draft at that point by the Seattle Mariners. How was that feeling? Was that must have been a proud moment, obviously for your family, especially your dad who'd been there, done it.
Yeah, it was just pure elation. Sort of the whole day in general. I kind of remember it. I actually had a deal. My agent called me the night before, said someone was going to take me in 10 to 15. And we were in the 13th round. My dad looked over at me. He was like, someone else might take you here. And I was like, no way. We have a deal. It's not going to happen. And then my name popped up on the screen. Right when you see your name in that moment, it's something you've worked for your whole life. And then it's actually happening. It's just so surreal. And it's pure joy. You're on cloud nine. Then obviously it's 2 days later, you're on a plane out to Arizona to go
Yeah,
start your professional career.
yeah. That must have been such a great feeling. But obviously, what was the point that made you decide to enter the draft at that time?
I knew always wanted to play professional baseball. I knew that. I could have gotten drafted after my sophomore year just because of age and I repeated, but I wasn't ready, obviously physically and skill wise. But my junior year, sort of, I didn't think much of it going into the year, and then we sort of got through April and started talking with some teams and some scouts, and I realized, okay, like this is probably going to happen. Got an agent and everything, and it was away from there. Just you sort of realize how quick it can all come together. So obviously to start the year, I didn't think much was going to happen. Sort of just try and stay level headed, but then you get 2 months into the season, and then it's everyone's calling you, asking for info and everything about your life and family and all that,
Yeah.
trying all these mental tests to see if you're not gonna give up on them or just take the money and run. But I mean, it's wild how quick it could happen.
Yeah, do you think that CAA defeat as well played like a big role in your decision, just to kind of be like, all right, like we've got here, we could have won it here, but I've got the chance to go to the next level, and I've outgrown.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. Like, I think that was one of the hardest parts for me, was watching all my friends and teammates from the year before the next year start the season and not being there with them. It was definitely strange. But like I knew I wanted to pursue this and go after it. And obviously after we lost to UNCW in the championship, I mean, rather would have won. I'm sure anyone else in that position would say that, but I mean, we got to go to the regionals still after that on a bid. And I mean, once I played in the regional, it was just like, I got to a regional. I did it. Obviously we didn't win the CAA and complete that goal, but I mean, made it to the regional, and I felt like I was ready to sort of move on and sort of test myself against the best.
Yeah, and obviously as part of your development, you were initially sent to the minor leagues with Everett Aqua Sox. Tell us about like how your time was there, and like what kind of differences it was from college ball.
So Everett's probably 30 minutes north of Seattle, and I actually we stayed with host families. So my roommate there was actually the shortstop at Elon, Ryan Ogren, who's actually one of my good friends today. I'll get to see him probably 3 weeks, I think.
Yeah,
A nice little golfing trip. But
not bad for some, eh?
yeah, exactly. But being up there and your coaches, every instructor there, they've all played professional baseball pretty much. So they've walked in your shoes and they tell you stories and everything. And I mean, you're traveling every 3 days to a new city, new place. We went to Boise, Idaho, Spokane, Washington, Portland, Oregon. But you get to see all these places you'd think you'd never go to in your life. And
Yeah,
it's really cool to sort of just get out and sort of explore them, which was, I mean, we got to go to Vancouver too in Canada. And I remember the one day we just walked down along the water there, and they actually had like a mini runway taken off on the river, lake, whatever it was right there. And I was like, I don't think I've ever seen this before in my life.
yeah, and that's like a big part of like playing professional sports as well, is you get to travel around the world and like across the US, and like you take it all in. You're like, wow, like this is great. Like,
Oh,
and
it's awesome.
even when you look back on it as well, you're like, some people are like, oh, do you have any regrets about not continuing to play professional? And I look back, I'm like, no, like I traveled the world, like I got to do something I love.
So much. You've seen
Yeah,
so many places because of soccer, because of baseball that you think you'd never go to before.
yeah. So obviously, after you finished Everett, you signed for West Virginia Power. How different was that experience to Everett? Obviously, Seattle's a bit different to West Virginia.
Yeah. So we were right in Charleston, West Virginia, right in the capital. It was nice to be on East Coast time there because I could sort of see my parents, I guess, a little closer. The closest we played to home was Jersey, but I mean, that was a way longer season. It was like 140 games in 150 days.
Uh,
And we had some long bus rides there. So, for example, we would go up to Lakewood in New Jersey on a 9-hour bus ride, play 3-4 games there, finish your game at 11 o'clock, 10:30, get on a bus at 11:30, 12, and then you're driving 8-9 hours down to Greensboro, North Carolina, where you're playing another game the next day. So it's really, I mean, managing sleep and everything, but still, I mean, you love it. You get to play baseball as your job. So, I mean, you can't really beat it.
yeah, and that's like obviously being able to like travel as well with the boys. Like you make a lot of good friends along the way, and you meet some big names like along that time as well. Were there any big names you played with or against while you're down there that are maybe now in the major leagues?
So we played. So one outfielder I was with in West Virginia was Jared Kelnick. He was drafted out of high school the year before by the Mets and then traded to the Mariners. First rounder, I think fifth or sixth pick overall, and probably the best baseball player I've seen in person. And that's saying a lot considering like how long I've been around the game in terms of where I've played and who I've played against. I mean, there's so many guys. There are a few guys. There's one we actually played in Everett who was a pitcher who was throwing like 102, 103, who's actually in the big leagues with the Texas Rangers right now and has been up for the last 2 years. So it's cool when you turn on the TV, whether it's MLB Network, ESPN, you actually see those guys playing. You're like, oh, wow, I faced him. Like, he struck me out.
You're like, oh, that's not too bad here.
Yeah, someone else is striking out to him, and it's a big leaguer. I don't have to feel as bad about myself.
Yeah. So, like, what was the things that kind of set them apart, do you think, like, from the other players?
Obviously, I think a lot is mental, and then obviously skill-wise, there's definitely a gap. And so a lot of the way our coordinators and coaches, instructors, how they describe it was like 80% of the big leagues is just guys that grinded through and just got through it. But then there's that 20% like those two guys that just get up in a year or two and they're just a level above everyone else. And you don't really believe it until you actually see it. And you're like, wow, like I got to compete with this. It's a reality shock, definitely.
Yeah, and obviously opens your eyes to like the bigger picture as well.
Yes.
And like you've moved on now, like not playing in the minor leagues anymore. You just started a new job. Tell us about that.
So how I actually got to this was Matt Maurizio was a Northeastern baseball alum, reached out to me over LinkedIn in April when I was still with the Mariners. He just reached out, asked me if I needed help with anything because he actually did the same path, played in the Royals system for 4 or 5 years. And we just kept talking. And then June came around, I got released. It was kind of a bittersweet moment. Obviously, it sucks because just like that, dream's over. But
yeah,
you start this new chapter of your life. And I got to talking with him more and obviously went through normal interview process at their company and everything. And I mean, I just loved everything they had to offer in terms of what they could do for people. So what I'm doing now is financial advising, trying to study for licenses and everything so I can legally give people financial advice. But I love it because it's still, you're sort of competing on a day-to-day level where you're trying to help people's lives. Like you're sort of, you're competing against yourself almost and trying to help them, which is the coolest part. And I mean, a lot of people, when they think of finance and investments, they get scared, but to have the chance to help them and put it all into perspective and sort of take away that anxiety they have, I love it because, I mean, you're bettering their lives for the future as well as their families' lives.
Yeah, and you obviously mentioned there like that bittersweet moment of like not being able to play anymore. But like how important is it to have like that education behind you and obviously a backup career plan from professional sports? Because it's at the end of the day, it's not the be all end all. It's a short career.
Yes. I mean, it's huge because, I mean, obviously Northeastern sets you up for that. And I knew that going in. Like, if it doesn't work out, it's okay. I have this backup plan there that I know no matter what, as long as I put my mind to it, I can be successful. And it gives you that sort of reassurance in the back of your mind, which, I mean, I'm so thankful for because I know a lot of guys that they get out of baseball and they don't really know what to do after that. And it's kind of sad because how I put it is baseball defines them.
Yeah, and obviously you must have made a big impact on Northeastern yourself, like with some of the alumni reaching out to you. Like, how important is it to be like involved in things and also like be yourself around not just like former players but even young kids that are growing up to play baseball?
I mean, it's awesome. I mean, you get to really put the game in perspective for them, which is cool. And you sort of, I mean, you've walked in their shoes before, so you really get to help them with everything. So if they have questions, you're helping them out right away. I mean, it's such a rewarding feeling to be able to give back to the game that gave so much to you.
Yeah, it's been great, mate. Thanks for taking the time today. It's been great hearing your journey so far and the exciting things you're up to with a career job now.
Yeah, I really appreciate it, Christian.
But before we go, what's some advice you could offer out there to future and current student athletes who are still competing or maybe thinking about committing to a college to compete?
I mean, obviously, just find what's best for you. I mean, you don't have to jump to hoops or jump through hoops or jump to conclusions right away. Like, take your time, put in the research and everything when it comes time to selecting a college. And I mean, look at everything, see what's best for you, because that's what matters in the end. You got to be selfish about that decision, because it impacts your whole life in the end. And then as far as current student athletes, just keep grinding. Like, it's what you wanted to do. Don't lose that love for the game. Obviously, it's tough with school, but just keep at it. I mean, in the end, it's definitely all worth it.
Yeah, and that's like if you once you lose that love for the game, that's when things start going wrong and you start getting in your own head. Like, and it's important to try and stay on top of things and be like, all right, this might not be the be all end all, but let's enjoy, like, live in the moment at that time.
Exactly. You want to be able to look back on it and have positive memories of it. And I mean, that's the biggest takeaway is, like, I look back on it, and the thing I remember most is really just being around the guys. I mean, obviously you have great games, bad games, but in the end, like, you made friends for life.
Yeah, that's been great, mate. Thanks very much.